start. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى أهله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Alhamdulillah, we give praise and thanks to Almighty Allah. We ask Him to shower His blessing upon the noblest of mankind, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, members of his family, his companions who stood by him, and all those who have stood, are standing, and will come to stand on this path, so Sirat al-Mustaqim, till the day of Qiyamah. Alhamdulillah. Last week we had a class and we did a brief summary of what we had been doing up until now in Kitab Az-Zakaat, and we ended up in Al-Hawl. The Hawl, the tenor, between the tenor wherein, or at the end of which, Zakah will be due. We talked about it. And this tenor, this Hawl, is one of the shurut. It is a shart from the shurut of Zakah. Said Zakah is ibadah to ikhraj mal makhsus min ibadah to ikhraj qadr makhsus min qadr makhsus min mal makhsus li milk tam لأشخاص مخصوص لمستحقين المخصوص في مدة مخصوص. So في مقدة في وقت مخصوصة. Now, we said that Zakah is an ibadah that involves the extraction of a certain amount from a certain threshold of a certain type of wealth or certain types of wealth, or belonging to certain types of people who exercise 100% ownership and jurisdiction over that. This extraction taking place at specific times and belonging to and being benefited, or the beneficiaries being specific individuals. So from this, we see that the Hawl is a specific time. So we said something about the Hawl and things. We said there are two types of Hawls. Can someone remind us, of these two types of Hawl? This tenor, there are two types with respect to the wealth that one is to pay zakah on. So what are the two types of hawl that we treated, and give examples of what type of wealth each hawl applies to. Madam Ziyad.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah. What the two types of hawl that we took last week, and what type of wealth do those hawl apply to?
The one okay.
Any one of them, if you can't remember both.
Okay. How that
that is the tenure that has to be completed before zakat will become due. You said there are two types.
Is it the two types of what's it called? Male that they
have.
Howl.
Yes, the time that has to pass between
There are some that immediately it's not up to 1 year. For example, the farm produce.
Okay.
So once we harvest, we have to give the zakat. It doesn't have to be 1 year. So that is immediate.
Barakallah fik.
Yeah, and for things like gold and silver, it has to be 1 year.
Barakallah fik. Barakallah fik. There is a third, somebody else. Sorry?
Is that the question?
Yes. That's
okay. Because I was confused whether yeah.
Barakallah. There's a third. Can somebody else answer that? Malam Mujib.
Doctor, I think probably that would be for wealth, that hidden wealth that you find.
So what is the hawl in that case?
Once it's proven to be that hidden wealth, you pay immediately.
Okay, barakallah fik. Apart from hidden wealth, what other type of wealth are you to okay, maybe what you ask, what are the types of hidden wealth that are zakatable?
If I understand that question, well, apart from lost treasure that is found, there is also things like crude oil and ores.
Barakallah fik. Barakallah fik. Barakallah fik. So there are two types of wealth that are extracted from the earth. Either one that was buried during the time of Jahiliyyah, that is referred to as rikaz, or the second one, which is ma'adin plural, ma'adin singular. So that is where you have that is your ore. So whether it is solid, liquid, or gaseous, any of these ores that is found in the earth, if one discovers them, this one is to pay immediately upon discovery, 2.5% Likewise, that of rikaz, immediately it is discovered, 2.5%. Barakallahu fikum. Now, we went from there to now take what the Sheikh Rahimullah, Sheikh Sa'id ibn Wahb al-Qahtaani, he said, وَيَنْقَطِعُ الْحَوْلِ بِأُمُورٍ عَلَى نَحْوِ التَّالِي. Still under the shart of hawl being a requirement for payment of zakah, and we now, after taking the different types of hawl, 3 of them in total, that which is zero time, that which is time dependent on when the crops are harvested. So it could be less than a year, it could be a year, it could be more than a year, depending on the life cycle of the crop. And 3, for things like gold, silver, and trade goods, we wait for a year. Prophet ﷺ said, La zakah fi malin hatta yahulu alayhi hawl. There's no zakah on wealth until 1 year has passed over it, 1 lunar year, that is. So after we understood this, we went to what the Sheikh said, وَيَنْقَطِعُ الْحَوْلُ بِأُمُورٍ عَلَى النَّحْوِ التَّالِي. Said this haul, this tenor that we begin counting when the trade goods, gold, and all the other types of zakat goods apart from rikaz and ma'adin. When those ones, there's no, haul, as we said. The haul is when you discover them. For those that the haul is beyond the point of a period of time beyond the point of discovery, then we say this haul, once we start counting it, it can become, the counts or the counting can become truncated and invalidated, such that we will have to start all over again. What are those things that can cause that? The first of them that we took is if that wealth dips below the nisab before the tenor, the haul has been completed, before 1 year, or whatever the haul is completed. If it is gold, silver, trade goods, you can start counting a year. Once the yes, you count 1 year. So within that 1 year, if the value of any of these things that we talked about dips below the nisab, then the counting of the haul becomes truncated and invalidated, and you wait until the value of that type of wealth rises to the nisab or above the nisab. Once it rises and hits the nisab, you start counting. Once it hits the nisab, you start counting again. So for instance, you have 85, let's say 200 grams of gold. You just got it anew. You had nothing before. So you start counting from that time when you gain possession of that 200 grams, because it is more than the nisab of 85 grams. So let's say something happens, whether some of it was stolen or lost or whatever, you are now left, before 1 year is completed, you are now left with 60 grams of gold. Then at whatever point it happened, even if it is a day before the zakat is due, then there's no zakat to pay on that again, because it has dipped below the nisab. So this is what the Sheikh said. He said, إِذَا نَقَصَ النِّصَابُ أَثْنَاءَ الْحَوْلِ قَبْلَ تَمَامِهِ. If the nisab or the wealth dips below the nisab during the tenure, before the tenure is completed. So what other thing did we take last week that will cause the tenure to be truncated? What other thing did we take last week that will cause the tenure to be truncated? Mr. Jala. Mr. Jala.
Sorry, my mouth is full a little bit.
Oh, okay. Barakallahu feekum.
So I'm trying to see if I understand the questions correctly.
Okay.
So we talked about if anything happens before the 1 year for the items that are 1 year, but we also talk about crops. Also for the crops, if they are damaged before it is due to pay the zakat, and if it is not due to the fault of the owner, of the person cultivating.
Yeah, the damage to the point where the value is now below the nisab.
Yeah.
But so this is that number one that I just explained. So is there any other, what is the other thing that we took last week that we said, once it is present, the counting becomes discontinued and we'll have to start all over again.
We also talk about maybe things like the animals.
Okay.
That is still, that if the number goes below, in the case of cattle, maybe 40. And,
yes, we did. Barakallahu fikum. And that is still under this first thing, that when the nisab, when the wealth goes below, dips below the nisab. Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair. So, Malam Sadiq, another thing that we talked about, that once it happens, apart from the wealth dipping below the nisab, if the wealth doesn't dip below the nisab, what other thing can happen for the tenure, the counting of the tenure to become truncated, and we'll have to start all over again? Sorry, I can't hear.
I said I cannot remember precisely.
Okay, barakallahu fikum. We talked about, let's go to the second page. If we talked about an instance where the person buys or sells the nisab that he has with another wealth. He has wealth of a certain kind that reaches the nisab. He now sells that wealth in order to purchase another type of wealth that is also zakatable. Both wealths, the one he had that he sold and the one that he bought, with it, are both zakatable. So he sells wealth that is at or above the nisab that is zakatable, and he replaces it with another type of wealth that is, also zakatable, is at or above the nisab, and is at or above the nisab. What happens in this case? We took it last, week. So the Sheikh said, إِذَا بَاعَ النِّصَابِ بِغَيْرِ جِنْسِهِ. If somebody sells wealth that he owns that is at or above the nisab, بِغَيْرِ جِنْسِهِ, and he gets in place of it that another type of wealth that is zakatable, that is other than the first type of wealth, that they are not of the same type. Maybe he sold gold and he got sheep, or he got silver. They are not the same type. So what athna al-hawl, and this happens before the tenure is completed. In the case of gold and silver and trade goods, sheep, this is 1 year. So let's say before that tenure is completed, he does this. La firaran min az-zakat. And he does it not so as to evade payment of zakat. If he does this in qata' al-hawl, the counting will become truncated, to become cut. We'll have to start all over again when, since we'll have to start all over again, immediately he gets a new type of wealth, because the new type of wealth he got is also at or above the nisab. Do we remember now that we took this last week?
Yes,
do we remember? Huh?
I said yes, I recall we took it last week.
Okay. Barakallahu fikum. So let's put it. So we have first instance that will cause the hawl to be truncated is when the nisab, or when the wealth dips below the nisab, and it applies to all of us. So we need to know it. You have savings and that saving is attained or is above the nisab. So you have to pay zakah on it. You have to start counting from the date it attained the nisab. So responsibilities come up during this time, and you spend out of the money, and it dips below the nisab. So once it dips below the nisab, you are no longer obliged to pay zakah on it, because being at the nisab is a shart from the shurut of paying zakah. Just like hawl is also a shart, a condition from the conditions, from the shurut of paying zakah. So once one shart becomes missing out of the 8 shurut, then you are no longer obliged to pay zakah. Under the 8 that we expanded, the 5 that the scholars usually will put out. So once this shurut, one shart from this shurut is no longer there, then you are not obliged. In this case, what is missing is that the wealth did not stay with the person for 1 year. The wealth that was sold before the tenure. In the in the first instance, what is missing is that the wealth are dipped below the nisab, even if all other conditions are met. But this wealth that is zakatable ordinarily has now dipped below, so the hawl will be truncated to start all over again. The second instance that we've just revisited is when one has wealth of a set that has attained the nisab or is above the nisab, and one sells it and gets in its place another type of wealth that is also at or above the nisab. So perhaps he sells 85 grams of gold and he gets in place of it 595 grams of silver. Both of them, both types of wealth are zakatable. Both types of wealth are at the nisab. If all other conditions are present, then zakat is due on this wealth. But the first wealth, which is the 85 grams of gold, which he sold, was not with him for 1 year. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La zakata fi-l-Mal hatta yahulu alayhi al-hawl." There's no zakah on wealth until 1 year has passed on it. 1 year didn't pass on this before he sold it. Now the new wealth that he got, let's say he got the gold, 85 grams of gold in Muharram. Then in Dhul-Hijjah, Dhul-Qa'dah, let's say in Rajab. Let's say in Rajab, he sold the gold. So Rajab is the 7th month. He sold the 85 grams of gold. So remaining 5 months, if he didn't sell it and 5 more months had elapsed, then he will have paid zakat 2.5% on that 85 grams of gold. However, because he's selling now in Rajab, and in that same Rajab, he got what? He got the silver. So he'll start counting the new haul from that Rajab. That will be his day 1 of month 1. Until, it becomes the 12th month after that, the 12th month after that. That is when he will do what? When he will pay the zakat on it. And that will be in Jumada Thani of the following year. So it will be complete as 12 months then. Is it clear in this case also? Is it clear?
Yes, for me.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Barakallahu fikum.
Naam.
So the same thing that happens with sale also happens with badal if you exchange the goods. If I have gold and I exchange with your silver, it's permissible to trade gold for silver. There are like different types of currencies. There are different types of currencies. So you trade the gold and you get the silver, whatever you arrange as your exchange rate. But what is not, if you're to do gold for gold, then it must be the same grammage for themselves. If it is silver for silver, it has to be the same grammage for themselves. One of the reasons that the scholars, Sheikh Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, one of them gave for this is that gold and silver are the most basic things in terms of pricing that all other things revolve around. Imagine a situation where you have a measuring tape, and you measure, one plot of land, or let's say 1 meter square of property or something like that. And the person sells it to you, says, okay, maybe I'm selling 1 hectare of land, and this is the amount. Imagine if at another time you want to buy another hectare, and the measuring the tape roll that you use changes. It has now contracted, meaning you are going to end up with a smaller parcel of land than you bought the first time. You want to buy it another time, it has expanded. Then there will be, unpredictability. There will be cheating. There will be a sense of loss amongst the people that are transacting. At least one of them will feel cheated at one point in time or the other. When it has contracted, the seller will gain. When it has expanded, the buyer will gain, while the seller loses. So these things need to be fixed. That is why even in everyday life, you have what we call SI units, where these things are fixed as this. And whatever depends on them can change, but they will not change. But if, the Sheikh Rahimahullah, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah said, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said, if gold and silver, we could sell gold for gold and silver for silver, then they too will change. The first thing that will now come about is what will we use as their own miqyas, as their own, scale for measuring, them. Then once you allow gold to be sold for gold, then people will hoard. And you will find situations also where somebody wants to buy and he doesn't have the money now. And he says, let me buy it, I'll pay you later. Which is also haram for items that are riba based. They are items that are referred to as al-amwal rubawiya. These are types of wealth that you are forbidden from trading in them, except that if you are trading one type for the same type, you must trade them like for like, hand to hand in the same sitting. Gold, silver, and food items are in this category. Food item, basic food items, not just any food item, the most basic food items. In some hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned burr, which is a type of wheat. He mentioned sha'ir, which is barley. He mentioned milh, which is salt. Some of the scholars expanded that to all types of basic food that are needed in society. Anything other than the basic, then is not compulsory. That is not covered. Why? Because if you allow someone to sell salts for salts and there's a difference in the pricing, then people will hoard. Naturally, you have created an incentive for trading. So people will hoard. And two, there will be people who will need and won't have the money and will say, let me buy now and pay later. And that will be haram for these items that are ribawiyah. However, for the things that are not ribawiyah, you can do postponed payments. You can buy them now and pay later. They are not essential things. Nobody will be harmed. If I want a Bugatti, for instance, and I don't have the money now, and I say, okay, give me the Bugatti and I'll pay you in 2 years' time, nobody is going to be harmed. I won't die, if the person says no, I'm not agreeing to that. If the seller says no, I won't agree to that transaction. But if it is food, I need bread, I want to eat, I haven't eaten for the past day, so give me bread now and I'll pay later. That is permissible because it is bread for money. But if somebody says, give me bread, I have bread, give me bread, number one, the transaction doesn't make too much, there isn't much value to it, except if, okay, I have wheat of a certain brand and you have wheat of another brand or grown in another area. So let us change. I like the taste of that one, grown in your area. Perhaps you also like the one grown in my area, so we switch. Then that is like for like. Anything other than that, if it is the same in those areas that we talked about, gold, silver, and most basic food items, anything other than this is permitted to trade as you like. As the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا اخْتَلَفَ فَبِيعُوا كَيْفَ شِئْتُمْ. And if they are different, then trade them as you wish. So that was just a diversion that we needed to make. Now back to badal. So selling and exchanging are the same. What you're doing is you're giving up the wealth of nisab or above nisab that you have and getting another type of wealth. So if you're doing this and the next other type of wealth that you're getting is not of the same type as the one that you have given up, then the howl becomes truncated and you start all over again in your counting. So long as you are not doing so in order to evade zakah. If you're doing it in order to evade zakah, the zakat institution will not be able to hold you once you don't tell them that is the reason. However, Allah does not forget. Allah is not unaware. He knows exactly what is in your heart. Alimun bidhati sudur. He knows what is in the hearts of men. So in his record, you owe zakah. In his record, you owe zakah. But you either pay here on earth and do tawbah, or yawm al-qiyamah, you will pay it back. So this is these are two other categories. We have three now. First category, or first thing that will happen for the howl to be truncated and we start counting all over again is that the wealth dips below the nisab. The second, you trade. The third, you exchange wealth that is at or above the nisab for another type of wealth that is also zakatable, that is at or above the nisab. So you start counting, immediately you get the new, type of wealth. There are scholars who differ from this position. However, they say that, the retained value, like Madam Isa, asked a question last week. So there's no evidence for that. That is the retained value. That we're to go up after. Rather, what is required is certain types of wealth. If we use value rather than certain types of wealth, then all wealth will qualify in that case. Because if I sell a type of wealth that I have or exchange it for another type of wealth that is not zakatable, I have a type of wealth that is zakatable and it has a certain value that is at or above the nisab. I sell it for another type of wealth that is not zakatable. Then, if we are following value, then it will still be zakatable because of the value. If I sell my gold, 85 grams, for diamond, for instance, diamond is not zakatable as an item. It is not zakatable. So, but if we go for value, then I say, oh, the value of the 85 grams of gold is still in this diamond, so it should be zakatable. So that's why the scholars are saying that it's not the value that you go for, but rather the what Allah and the Prophet ﷺ explained to us are things that are zakatable. The types of wealth are those things that we will consider. The fourth, the Sheikh Rahimahullah, before going to the fourth, he says, Amma idha ba'ahu aw abdalahu bi jinsihi fa innal hawl la yanqati'. He says, however, that if the person selling or exchanging his wealth that is zakatable, that is at or above the nisab, is going to get in place of it, or of what he sold or exchanged, is going to get the same type of genre of wealth, then the hawl has not been truncated. The Prophet ﷺ said, La zakata fi malin, there is no zakah on a wealth hatta yahulu alayhi hawl, until 1 year as part of it. That a wealth, meaning a type of wealth. So if you have a type of wealth and you sell it for the same type of wealth, I have gold, maybe of a certain design. Is it maybe or let's say a woman now, she has a golden ring, 85, that is 85 grams, and she doesn't want it anymore, so she wants to change it for gold still, but gold coin or gold necklace or gold trinkets. It's still the same gold. So it will not, it will still be the same if she had melted it, the trinket, the same type of gold, she melted it and it turned into, just the raw metal, like that, without any shape, any design. So there'll be no difference. It's still the same gold. So if you sell gold and you get gold in return, sell silver and you get silver in return, then the hawl does not truncate. You continue. If you did this in the 10th month, you will pay your zakah in the 12th month. This is what the Sheikh Rahimahullah is saying. So, and this is, of course, if the nisab is maintained in both instances. If I have 40 sheep, for instance, I have 40 Noaimi sheep, and I say I don't, maybe the cost of feeding them or maintaining them, getting the veterinary and all that, they get sick a lot and stuff like that. So I said I'm selling them, and I'm going to get Najdi sheep or Sudani sheep, 40 also. Then in both cases, they are two things have happened. One, it is sheep for sheep. Two, the quantity I sold is the nisab, 40. The quantity I got back is also the nisab, 40. So whatever point in time I do this during the haul doesn't matter. The haul is not truncated. So this is what the Sheikh rahimahullah is saying here. He said, mithlu dhalik. He says an example. Yes, Madam Mujib. Go ahead, ask your question.
And you can finish, then I'll ask after you're done, or I should go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, Doctor, my question is more related to the explanation you just finished about, or the example with the woman changing her gold from one form to the other. I remember you rightly said that diamond, for instance, as valuable as it is to the world, it is not considered zakatable in and of itself. The trade goods, you get the value on the money and all that. So let's say a woman, and I might not fully understand how this jewelry are weighed, but I just want to double check that they like, in case there's this confusion that I have in my mind, how it is managed, which is, if I have gold, plain gold without any diamonds on it, I can imagine how to get the value. If on the other hand, I have a gold that has diamond on it, from what I have seen, that will be usually more expensive, especially for pure, high quality diamond. So in trying to evaluate the zakat value of this type of gold that has some diamond stones and all in it, how is it practically done? Do they find a way to get the weight of the gold in it, or do they just take it all as gold based on value? I don't know if you get my question. I'm a bit confused about how.
I do. Barakallah. It doesn't have to be diamond. It could be a mixture of different, metals that is used to make, jewelry, and things like that. Where there are multiple, metals in a jewelry, the part of it that are zakatable are those that are regarded as zakatable by the Sharia: gold and silver. Every other thing will be discountenanced. They are not zakatable once they are not being sold as trade goods. If they are being sold as trade goods, then they are taken as a whole. The value of that whole thing is what you are now talking about with trade goods. So if it's not trade goods, if it's a jewelry that you own and things like that, then it is just the gold part of it and the silver part of it that you take, and you take them independently. Not that you add 5 grams of silver to 80 grams of gold to make 85 grams. No, gold on its own, silver on its own. Now, those who sell this jewelry, have their method of knowing the weights. Is either the manufacturer has already engraved that into the gem or the metal or whatever it is, or they will weigh it. Usually when these things are made, they are encrusted in a way that it is possible for the experts in that whatever to remove and refix those things. So when you take them to the seller, they will do they will get the weight for it. So that's how it is done. Allahu A'lam. So is that clear?
Yes, very clear. Jazakallahu khair.
Okay. Something came to my mind when we were talking, and that is we forgot to talk about something here. And when we're talking about, okay, yes, illa fi urud at-tijara, illa fi urud at-tijara. And that is if you have a type of wealth that is zakatable, that is at or above the nisab. and you sell it or you exchange it before the haul is completed, then the haul becomes truncated. You start all over again. Once you are not doing that in order to evade payment of zakat. But there's one exception: trade goods. Illa fi urud al-tijar. This does not apply to trade goods. Why? Because anything qualifies as trade good once it is being offered for trade. So this diamond that we said just a short while ago, that because of its nature, it is not zakatable, or it is not zakatable due to it being diamond, unlike gold and silver, which are zakatable because of their nature. Diamond will become zakatable if it's a trade good. So if you have a store, you're selling diamond, you're selling shoes, you're selling clothes, you're selling foodstuff, in the same establishment and all that, everything is trade goods. So if you sell one and get another type of trade goods, it doesn't matter. The how will not truncate because it is still trade goods. It is still trade goods. So trade goods will be like what the Sheikh said over here, that if you are selling or exchanging a type of wealth for the same type of wealth. If you sell sheep to get sheep, if you sell gold to get gold, sell gold necklaces in order to get gold coins, or vice versa, it is still the same thing. So it doesn't change. So urud at-tijara, trade goods, they fall in the same category as if somebody were to sell or change a type of wealth that is zakatable that he has, that is at or above the nisab, for something else that is also zakatable and at or above the nisab in the same class of item. So we must note this and that trade goods belong in this category. Trade goods belong in this category. So now, so the Sheikh Rahimahullah says, Amma idha ba'a aw abdala bin jins Amma idha ba'ahu aw abdalahu bin jinsihi fa in al-hawl la yanqati. So as we described, if it happens that way, of the same type, then you're selling and getting something of this that's also zakatable and at or above the nisab, then the hawl, the counting, does not truncate. It is not truncated. Mithalu dhalik, the Sheikh Rahimahullah said, an example of that is rajulun, a man, ba'a dhahaban bi dhahab. He sells gold and he gets gold in exchange. Aw fidda bi fidda. He sells, he sells gold, a gold coin, a silver coin that has let's say the flag of a certain country printed on it, and he gets another silver coin that has the flag of another country inscribed on it, or any other thing like that, where it is the same item, the same class of item for the same class of item. Or he sells 40 sheep in order to get 40 sheep in order to get 40 sheep. Sells 40 Najdi sheep in order to get 40 Nu'aymi sheep, or 40 Ordoni sheep, or something like that. It's still the same. فَإِنَ الْحَوْلَ لَا يَنْقَطِعُ. The hawl does not truncate in these instances, because it still fits that hadith. La zakah fi malin. There's no zakah on a type of wealth, and it is still the same type of wealth that is being maintained. Hatta yahulu alayhi al-hawl, until 1 year has passed on it. So it fits into that hadith. Still sheep that you have, even though you have changed types of sheep. Now, لأنه أبدله بجنسه, because it changed for the same type. أما إذا فعل شيئا من ذلك فرارا من الزكاة فإن الحول لا ينقضي. So this part I don't think should be there, because in this case, ab initio, the howl is not cut off. So whether you did that to escape zakah or you didn't do that to escape zakah, it doesn't matter. The howl is not truncated. The howl is not truncated. Qala Imam Ibn Qudama, Imam Ibn Qudama, the author of the book Al-Mughni, said, وَجُمْلَةُ وَأَنَّهُ إِذَا بَاعَ نِصَابًا لِزَكَاةٍ مِمَّا يُعْتَبَرْ فِيهِ الْحَوْلُ مِنْ جِنْسِهِ كالإبل بالإبل والبقرة بالبقرة والغنم بالغنم أو الذهب بالذهب أو فضة بالفضة لم ينقطع الحول. So it says just a summary of what we said. If he sells one type of thing for another type of thing, whether it is a camel for a camel, a cow for a cow, sheep for sheep, gold for gold, silver for silver, the howl is not truncated. وبنى الحول الثاني على الحول الأول. So he will continue the counting of his howl for the second, for the second stock that he collected, from it will be a continuation of the first stock that he disposed of. There won't be any change whatsoever. وَبِهَذَا قَالَ al-Malik. This is what Imam Malik said. There's different opinion amongst the scholars. Someone like وَوَافَقْنَا Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa is also of this opinion, but in fi-l-Islaam, with regards to gold and silver. With regards to gold and silver. Imam Abu Hanifa and some of the scholars, they say that gold and silver, if you sell gold and you get silver, if you sell gold that is at or above the nisab, and you get silver that is at or above the nisab, or vice versa, that's your the howl is not truncated. They say because both of them are currencies. Some of the scholars say it is not only gold and silver, but gold, silver, and trade goods, because all of them you pay 2.5% on them. And not only that, the trade goods is priced based on the value of gold or silver. So that is why you pay 2.5% on all three. So they are the same, they say. So some of the scholars restricted to gold and silver, that those are the mikyas, they are the athman, they are the things with which you determine the prices of other things. But some of the scholars say no, they are two different things. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ad-Dhahab bil-Dhahab, or Al-Fidda bil-Fidda. If you are selling gold, then gold for gold. If you are selling silver, silver for silver, like for like, hand to hand, and at the same sitting. So the Prophet ﷺ made this distinction between silver and gold. And the most correct opinion of the scholars is that when you're paying zakah, you don't add gold to silver. You do the counting of silver separately and that of gold separately. So Allah Alam, that is the more correct opinion, that if you're changing from one genes to the other, from one type, from one genre to the other, and both of them are zakatable and at or above the nisab, then the howl becomes truncated because they are not in the same genes, they're not in the same genre, they're not the same type of wealth. But if the type of wealth is the same, then the howl is not truncated. So this is the thing. If you're changing between two things that will ordinarily be zakatable, do two different things, the howl is truncated. If it's the same category, if they belong to the same category, the howl is not, is not truncated. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, barakallahu fikum. So, so some of the scholars have a different, opinion. Imam Al-Kharki said, وَكَذَلِكَ إِنْ أَبْدَلَ الْعِشْرِينَ دِينَارٍ بِمِئَةِ dirham. Dinar is it gold or silver? Anybody? Which one is dinar? Which one is dirham?
I think dinar is gold.
Barakallahu fikum. And dirham is silver. Okay, good. So the nisab for gold is 20 dinar, which is 85 grams, while for the nisab for silver is 595 grams, which is 200 dirhams, mi'atay dirhams. So if you sell one for the other, whichever it is, lam yabtul az-zakaat bi intiqaliha. So Imam Al-Kharqi's opinion is that there's the same as that of Imam Abu Hanifa, that gold and silver are the same. If you sell one for the other, it doesn't affect your counting. But as you said, that is not the more correct opinion. Allahu A'lam. Imam Ibn Qudama said, وَجُمْلَةُ ذَلِكَ أَنَّهُ مَتَى أَبْدَلَ نِصَابًا مِنْ غَيْرِ جِنْسِهِ انقطع حول الزكاة وَاسْتَنَفَ مِنْ جَدِيدٍ. So he is saying the opposite. That if you sell a zakatable item that is at or above the zakat, and you get something of a different type of nature, then the howl becomes truncated and you start all over again. So the rest of the talk here, of the discourse here, is about the difference of opinion of the scholars on it, and we've talked about that, inshallah. So next week, let us remember what we've taken in today's class. Inshallah, I'll ask again. Next week, inshallah, we'll go to أما عروض التجارة فلا ينقطع الحول بمبادلة أو البيع. We talked about this. Trade goods are not affected because they are not being sold because of what they are. They are being sold because of, they are not zakatable because of what they are. They are zakatable because of what they are used for. We are selling them. So it's because we're selling them and generating revenue, then we must pay zakah on them. So what it is that we're selling, once it's something that's halal to sell, then it doesn't matter. So we talked about that already. Next week, okay, we'll go to Mabhath as-Sadis, which is Zakat Dain, the zakah on debts. If you owe debt or somebody owes you debt, are you to pay zakah? Is he to pay zakah? So inshallah, we'll go to that next week. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Do we have any question? Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
So,
Alaikum salam.